The rain fell in a relentless sheet, casting a gray pallor over what remained of Washington, D.C. Streets that once thrummed with life now lay silent, save for the occasional echo of distant footsteps. Buildings stood as skeletal remnants of their former grandeur, looming shadows against the overcast sky. Here, in this city of ghosts, User moved with purpose. User's mind was aware of calculations, patterns forming and reforming as they navigated the labyrinthine streets. The directorate had called them in for another briefing, another mission cloaked in secrecy. As an information analyst, User was accustomed to piecing together the fragments of a shattered world. But today felt different. An undercurrent of urgency pulsed through the air. The directorate's headquarters loomed ahead, an imposing structure that seemed to defy the decay surrounding it. User pushed through the heavy doors, water pooling at their feet as they stepped inside. The air was thick with the scent of damp paper and old leather, a library of whispers and secrets. Dr. Rosalind Turner waited in her office, her presence a beacon of stability amidst the chaos. Roz, as she preferred to be called, was a woman of sharp intellect and sharper instincts. Her eyes were a vivid blue, piercing through the dim light as she regarded User with a mixture of warmth and scrutiny. "You're late," Roz said, her voice carrying the weight of both reprimand and understanding. "Traffic," User replied dryly, shaking droplets from their coat. "Or what's left of it." Roz's lips twitched into a semblance of a smile. "Sit," she instructed, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "We have much to discuss." User settled into the chair, fingers tapping an unconscious rhythm against their knee, a habitual tick when deep in thought. Roz watched them for a moment before leaning forward, her expression shifting to one of gravity. "There's been movement in the rogue factions," Roz began, her tone clipped and precise. "Marcus Voss is claiming to possess information that could alter everything." User's brow furrowed. Marcus Voss was a name that sent ripples through the intelligence community, a charismatic leader with a penchant for unpredictability. "What kind of information?" Roz hesitated, choosing her words with care. "A secret weapon. Or perhaps something more abstract, knowledge that could change the balance of power." "And you believe him?" User asked, skepticism lacing their voice. "I believe he's dangerous enough to warrant our attention," Roz replied. "And there's more." She paused, allowing the tension to build. "We intercepted communications between Voss and Elias Reed." User's heart skipped a beat at the mention of Reed, a disillusioned scientist whose theories on parallel realities bordered on madness or genius depending on one's perspective. "What does Reed have to do with this?" "That's what we need you to find out," Roz said simply. "Your mission is to infiltrate Voss's faction, determine the nature of this supposed secret, and assess Reed's involvement." The weight of the task settled over User like a shroud. Infiltration meant deception, risk, and the constant dance of trust and betrayal. Yet beneath the apprehension lay a flicker of something else, an opportunity for redemption. "I'll do it," User said finally, meeting Roz's gaze with unwavering resolve. Roz nodded, satisfaction mingling with concern in her eyes. "Be careful," she advised softly. "Voss is not to be underestimated." User rose from the chair, the vintage wristwatch on their wrist ticking softly as if marking time's relentless march forward. They turned to leave, but paused at the door, glancing back at Roz. "Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing?" User asked quietly, the question hanging heavy between them. Roz considered this for a moment before answering. "I wonder every day," she admitted, "but we must act on what we believe is right, even when certainty eludes us." With that, User stepped back into the rain-soaked city, a landscape of shadows and secrets, where every decision could tip the scales towards salvation or ruin. The journey to Marcus Voss's stronghold was fraught with uncertainty. User traveled under assumed identities and false pretenses, each step a calculated move in a game where one misstep could prove fatal. The city outside the Directorate's influence was a patchwork of territories controlled by rival factions, each vying for dominance amidst the ruins. As they neared Voss's territory, User felt the familiar prickle of paranoia, a survival mechanism honed by years of navigating treacherous waters. Trust was a currency spent sparingly in this world. Alliances shifted like sand underfoot. The compound itself was an incongruous blend of militaristic efficiency and haphazard improvisation. Guards patrolled its perimeter with practiced vigilance, their expressions impassive as user approached. A man stepped forward to meet them, tall and imposing with eyes like shards of ice. His demeanor spoke of authority tempered by suspicion. "Welcome," he said curtly, extending a hand that bore no warmth. "I'm Marcus Voss." User shook his hand, noting the strength in his grip, a silent reminder of his power within these walls. "I hear you have something that could change everything," User said, cutting straight to the heart of their mission. Voss's smile was enigmatic, a flicker of amusement that danced briefly across his features. "Perhaps," he replied cryptically, "but first, let's see if you're worth knowing." He gestured for User to follow him into the depths of the compound, a labyrinthine warren where secrets lurked behind every corner. Here, amidst the shadows and whispers, User would begin their search for truth in a world where reality itself was malleable. As they walked side by side through dimly lit corridors, User couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Eyes hidden behind walls and doors, assessing every move. "You know why you're here," Voss said abruptly, breaking the silence that had stretched between them, "to find answers." "And what do you hope to gain from sharing those answers?" User countered, their voice steady, despite the tension coiling within. Voss paused at an intersection where hallways branched off into darkness, each path leading to unknown destinations fraught with danger or discovery. "Power," he admitted finally, a single word laden with implication and ambition. User met his gaze unflinchingly, two minds locked in silent combat where words served as weapons wielded with precision and intent. "And what about Reed?" User pressed further, a calculated risk designed to probe beneath Voss's enigmatic exterior. Voss regarded them thoughtfully before responding, a measured pause filled with unspoken possibilities, waiting patiently beneath layers woven tightly together by time itself. "Elias Reed holds keys we cannot yet comprehend," he said enigmatically, his voice carrying echoes drawn from distant places where parallel realities converged upon themselves like waves crashing against unseen shores beyond human understanding's reach. With those words hanging heavy between them like mist suspended midair, thickened by anticipation's weighty presence, they continued onward into uncertainty, each step taken carefully lest it unravel all that remained tethered tenuously together within this fractured city's heart, beating defiantly against encroaching darkness, threatening constantly from all sides without warning or mercy given freely nor asked for willingly ever again. The rain tapped softly against the window pane, a rhythmic reminder of the world outside as User sat at their desk, fingers drumming lightly against the worn surface. The dimly lit room was cluttered with maps and dossiers, each one a testament to the fractured state of global affairs. The Directorate's headquarters in Washington, D.C. was a fortress of secrecy, a place where shadows whispered and trust was a currency more valuable than gold. User leaned back, eyes fixed on the ceiling as thoughts tumbled over each other like storm clouds. The mission briefing had been succinct, yet its implications were anything but simple. Infiltrate Marcus Voss's faction, extract intelligence, and neutralize any threats. It was a standard directive, yet something about it nagged at User's mind. A sharp knock on the door pulled them from their reverie. "Come in," User called, straightening up. The door swung open to reveal Dr. Rosalind "Roz" Turner, her presence commanding despite her petite frame. Her eyes, sharp and discerning, scanned the room before settling on User. "Busy?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of warmth beneath its professional veneer. "Never too busy for you, Roz," User replied, gesturing for her to sit. She settled into the chair opposite User, smoothing out imaginary creases in her skirt. "I hear you're heading into the lion's den," she said, not bothering with preamble. User nodded. "Voss is a wild card. His influence is growing, and the Directorate wants answers." Roz leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "And what do you want, User?" The question hung in the air like smoke. User hesitated, choosing their words carefully. "I want to understand what he's after, whether it's power, chaos, or something else entirely." Roz studied them for a moment before speaking. "Just remember, every conversation is a chess match. With Voss, you'll need to be 10 moves ahead. Or more," User agreed, their mind already racing with possibilities. Roz shifted in her seat, her expression turning thoughtful. "There's something else you should know," she said slowly. I've been digging into some of the Directorate's recent directives. There are inconsistencies, things that don't add up. User's interest peaked. Inconsistencies? Yes, Roz confirmed. Orders that contradict our objectives, information that's being withheld. Are you saying the Directorate has its own hidden agenda? User asked, leaning forward. I'm saying we need to be cautious, Roz replied, her tone grave. Trust is a rare commodity these days. User nodded, the weight of her words settling over them like a shroud. I'll keep my eyes open. Roz offered a small smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. You always do. As Roz rose to leave, User caught her wrist gently. Thank you, they said earnestly. She nodded, her expression softening briefly before she turned and left the room. Alone once more, User returned to their desk, the rain outside a steady companion to their thoughts. The mission loomed large in their mind, a tangle of uncertainty and danger that promised no easy answers. The journey to Berlin was uneventful, the flight shrouded in clouds that mirrored User's mood. As they stepped onto the tarmac, the city's atmosphere enveloped them, a blend of cold air and the faint scent of coal smoke. Berlin was a city divided by more than just physical barriers. It was a living testament to the uneasy truce that held the world together by fraying threads. The contact was waiting at a nondescript cafe tucked away in one of Berlin's narrow alleyways. User approached cautiously, their senses heightened by the unfamiliar surroundings. Elias Reed? User asked quietly as they slid into the seat opposite a man whose eyes flickered with both weariness and a spark of something else, perhaps hope or desperation. Elias nodded, his fingers tracing patterns on the table's surface as if drawing invisible maps of alternate realities only he could see. You're from the Directorate, he stated rather than asked. I am, User confirmed. I'm here to discuss your research. Elias's eyes darkened slightly. They want to use it as a weapon. Do you blame them? User countered. In this world, anything can be weaponized. He chuckled dryly, a sound devoid of humor. True enough, but what I'm working on isn't about destruction. It's about possibility. Possibility? User echoed. Elias leaned closer, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. Parallel realities, alternate timelines where different choices led to different outcomes. Imagine being able to access those paths. User considered his words carefully. You're suggesting we could change history. I'm suggesting we could learn from it, Elias replied. Understand where things went wrong and perhaps find a way to correct our course. The idea was tantalizing, a chance to rewrite the past and alter the future. Yet it was also fraught with peril. Tampering with time could unravel everything. And what do you gain from this? User asked. Elias hesitated before answering. Redemption, he said finally. For mistakes I made, for things I couldn't prevent. His admission resonated with something deep within User, a shared burden of guilt and regret that transcended individual circumstances. Then let's see what we can uncover together, User said softly. Their conversation continued late into the night, weaving through theories and possibilities like threads in an intricate tapestry. Each word exchanged carried weight as they navigated the complex web of science and morality that bound them together. But beneath it all lay an undercurrent of tension, a reminder that in this world of shadows and deception, trust was both fragile and fleeting. As dawn approached, User left Elias with promises of further collaboration and a mind buzzing with new questions and uncertainties. Back at their temporary quarters, exhaustion tugged at them like an insistent tide. Yet sleep remained elusive. Thoughts swirled relentlessly as they grappled with the implications of Elias's research and Roz's warnings. The Directorate's true intentions loomed large in their mind, a puzzle whose pieces refused to fit neatly together. Infiltration had been the easy part. Now came the real challenge, deciphering truth from lies in a world where reality itself was as malleable as clay. And as they lay awake listening to Berlin's distant sounds, trains clattering over tracks and voices murmuring in hushed tones, they knew that every choice would echo through time like ripples on water. In this game of infiltration and deception, only one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be quite what it seemed again. The rain drummed a relentless rhythm against the cracked windows of the Directorate's makeshift headquarters, a converted government building now serving as the nerve center for Washington, D.C.'s fragile peacekeeping efforts. The air inside was thick with the smell of damp paper and stale coffee. mingling with the low hum of conversation and the occasional static burst from radio equipment. It was here, in this cocoon of controlled chaos, that user found themselves poring over a series of encrypted messages intercepted from a rogue faction rumored to be operating on the city's outskirts. User. Roz's voice cut through the murmur, drawing their attention away from the jumble of letters and numbers. Her presence was both comforting and commanding, a rare combination that had earned her respect among peers and subordinates alike. "Dr. Turner," User replied, acknowledging her with a nod. They set aside the message, eyes meeting Roz's with a mix of anticipation and caution. Conversations with her were never predictable. They were mental exercises that left one questioning more than answering. Roz leaned against the edge of the cluttered desk, crossing her arms. "I've been analyzing the latest intel on Marcus Voss. His movements suggest he's amassing something significant. Resources, people, possibly both." User felt their pulse quicken at the mention of Voss, the enigmatic leader whose influence seemed to stretch beyond the tangible. "Do we have any leads on his endgame?" Roz sighed, her gaze turning inward as if sifting through a mental archive of possibilities. "That's what I'm hoping you can help decipher. The pieces are there, but they're not fitting together as they should. It's almost as if we're missing a crucial part of the puzzle." User nodded slowly, understanding the weight of what she was implying. In this world of shadows and secrets, missing pieces often meant the difference between survival and catastrophe. "I'll double-check our data streams, see if there's anything we've overlooked." Roz's expression softened slightly, an unspoken gratitude lingering in her eyes. "Good. But remember, User, trust your instincts. Sometimes logic alone isn't enough." The words hung in the air like a subtle admonition, a reminder of the delicate balance between intellect and intuition. User knew Roz's advice came from experience, a hard-earned wisdom forged in the crucible of loss and recovery. Their conversation shifted to lighter matters, or at least what passed for light in these times. Updates on field operatives, rumors about new technologies being developed by rival factions, the ever-present question of who could be trusted within their own ranks. Each topic was dissected with precision, Roz guiding User through each with her trademark blend of skepticism and insight. As their discussion wound down, Roz tapped her fingers thoughtfully on the desk. "One more thing," she said, her tone taking on a conspiratorial edge. "There's someone I want you to meet, an asset who's recently come under our radar." User raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her choice of words. "An asset?" "Yes," Roz confirmed, her voice dropping to a whisper even though they were alone. "Elias Reed." The name sent a shiver down User's spine. Reed was a figure shrouded in mystery, a scientist whose work on parallel realities had sparked both awe and fear among those who understood its implications. "I thought he was just a myth," User murmured, leaning closer as if proximity might lend clarity to Roz's revelation. "He's very real," Roz assured them, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of excitement and caution. "And he claims to have information that could change everything." The gravity of her statement settled over them like a leaden cloak. In a world where information was power and power was survival, anything that could change everything was both tantalizing and terrifying. "When do I meet him?" User asked, their mind already racing with possibilities and potential pitfalls. "Tomorrow," Roz replied, her voice firm with resolve. "But tread carefully, User. Elias is complicated." User nodded, understanding that in this world, complications often came with deadly consequences. Yet there was an undeniable allure to the unknown, a chance to uncover truths that might reshape their fractured reality. As they prepared to leave, Roz placed a reassuring hand on User's shoulder. "Remember," she said softly, "we're all searching for answers in this darkness. Just make sure you don't lose yourself along the way." User offered her a faint smile, grateful for the reminder that even amidst chaos, some bonds remained unbroken. They walked out into the corridor, footsteps echoing off cold stone walls as they contemplated what lay ahead. The next morning dawned gray and oppressive, clouds hanging low like an ominous shroud over the city. User navigated Berlin's maze-like streets with practiced ease, their mind replaying Roz's words as they approached the rendezvous point, a nondescript cafe nestled between towering edifices that bore scars of war yet stood defiantly against time's erosion. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and muted conversations. User spotted Elias Reed seated at a corner table, his appearance as unassuming as his reputation was formidable. He looked up as they approached, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses that glinted in the dim light. "Agent Lydia Monroe," he greeted with a nod, gesturing to an empty chair opposite him. "Just User will do," they replied, settling into their seat while assessing him with keen interest. Elias exuded an aura of quiet intensity, his demeanor calm yet charged with an undercurrent of urgency that matched their own sense of purpose. "I assume Dr. Turner briefed you on my work," he began without preamble, his voice carrying an edge that suggested both confidence and secrecy. "She mentioned your theories about parallel realities," User confirmed cautiously. "But I'm more interested in how you plan to apply them." Elias leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice as if sharing a guarded secret. "What if I told you there's a way to access alternate timelines, paths where history diverged from our own?" The question hung between them like bait on a hook, dangerous yet irresistible. User met his gaze steadily, curiosity piqued despite lingering doubts about his motives. "And you believe this could change our present reality?" Elias nodded slowly, conviction etched into every line of his face as he spoke with fervor bordering on zealotry. "If we can unlock these timelines, find one where events unfolded differently, we might prevent this dystopian outcome altogether." It was an audacious claim, one fraught with perilous implications, but its potential was undeniable. "What do you need from me?" User asked finally, aware they were stepping onto treacherous ground yet compelled by possibilities beyond imagination's grasp. Elias considered them for a moment before replying, "I need access to resources within the Directorate to complete my research." The request carried weighty implications. Trust extended across fragile lines drawn amidst shifting allegiances, and User hesitated before answering. "I'll see what I can do," they said at last, knowing full well such promises came at great risk, but feeling drawn towards something greater than themselves, a chance for redemption perhaps, or simply hope amidst despair's shadowed embrace. Their conversation continued, probing deeper into Elias's vision while skirting around unspoken fears lurking beneath surface calm, and when finally parting ways, each left pondering paths untaken yet waiting still upon horizon's edge, a journey begun anew toward uncertain destinies entwined within mysteries unfolding beneath Berlin's haunted skies above. The air in the dimly lit room was heavy with anticipation. Lydia Monroe sat across from Dr. Rosalind Turner, the soft glow from a single desk lamp casting shadows that danced along the walls of the Directorate's intelligence office. Lydia's fingers tapped rhythmically on the armrest of her chair, a subconscious metronome to the thoughts racing through her mind. Roz leaned back, her eyes sharp and penetrating. "You've been quiet today, Lydia," she observed, her voice a blend of curiosity and concern. "Something on your mind?" Lydia hesitated, the weight of recent discoveries pressing against her tongue. "It's this new mission," she began, choosing her words carefully. "Marcus Voss, his faction, they claim to have technology that can alter the past." Roz's expression remained unchanged, but Lydia knew better than to mistake her silence for disinterest. "And you think there's truth to it?" Roz asked, her tone measured. "Honestly, I'm not sure what to believe anymore," Lydia confessed, frustration creeping into her voice. "Elias Reed's theories on parallel realities, if they're even remotely plausible, then everything we've been fighting for could be meaningless." Roz nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving Lydia's face. "Meaningless or not, those are dangerous ideas that could destabilize what little order we have left." Lydia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "I know, but what if he's right? What if there is a way to change things?" Roz leaned forward, her eyes narrowing slightly. "And what would you change, Lydia? Your past? The war? The lives lost?" The questions hung in the air like a dense fog, each one a reminder of the burdens Lydia carried. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know," she admitted softly, "but I can't help wondering if there's a chance to make things right." Roz sat back again, her expression softening. "We all have regrets," she said gently, "but chasing ghosts won't bring them back." Their conversation paused as the distant rumble of thunder rolled through the city, a reminder of the unpredictable storms that mirrored their turbulent world. Lydia glanced towards the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. "Do you trust Elias?" Roz asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Lydia turned back, meeting Roz's gaze with uncertainty. Trust isn't exactly a luxury we have these days, she replied evasively. Roz smiled faintly, a hint of amusement in her eyes. True enough, but sometimes trust is the only currency we have left. They were interrupted by a knock at the door. A young operative poked his head in, his expression tense. Dr. Turner, there's an urgent message for you. Roz nodded and stood up, gesturing for Lydia to follow. As they walked down the narrow corridor, Lydia couldn't shake the feeling that their conversation had only scratched the surface of deeper truths yet to be uncovered. In Roz's office, a small device projected a holographic message into the air, a coded transmission from within the directorate itself. Roz studied it intently, her brow furrowing as she decrypted the message. It's from one of our contacts inside Marcus Voss's faction, Roz murmured, more to herself than to Lydia. They've discovered something big. Lydia leaned closer, trying to decipher the flickering symbols reflected in Roz's glasses. What is it? Roz's face paled as she processed the information. A weapon, she whispered, something capable of unimaginable destruction. Lydia felt a chill run down her spine. And they plan to use it? Roz nodded grimly. It seems so. But there's more. Something about the directorate being involved. Lydia's mind raced, pieces of a puzzle snapping into place with chilling clarity. Are you saying the directorate knew about this? That they might be complicit? Roz's silence was answer enough. The room seemed to close in around them as Lydia grappled with the implications. Trust was indeed a rare commodity in their world, one that now felt more precarious than ever. What do we do? Lydia asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Roz looked at her with a mix of resolve and resignation. We find out the truth, whatever it takes. As they prepared to delve deeper into the labyrinth of deception surrounding them, Lydia couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, a prelude to revelations that could change everything. The storm outside raged on, its fury mirrored by the turmoil within Lydia's heart. She knew that every step forward would bring them closer to answers, or perhaps to dangers they couldn't yet fathom. But one thing was certain. In a world where reality was malleable and truth elusive, they had no choice but to keep moving forward, driven by a relentless pursuit of redemption and survival. With Roz by her side, Lydia felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. A hope that maybe, just maybe, they could rewrite their fractured world into something resembling peace. As they stepped out into the rain-soaked streets of Berlin, the echoes of their conversation lingered, a testament to the unraveling truths that lay ahead and the choices that would shape their destinies in ways they had yet to imagine. The rain had begun as a whisper, barely audible over the distant hum of machinery and the low rumble of trams that traversed the wet streets of Berlin. By the time User reached the narrow alleyway leading to the clandestine meeting point, it had grown into a steady downpour, each drop adding to the slick sheen on the cobblestones. User pulled their coat tighter against the chill, casting furtive glances at the shadowed doorways and windows above. In this city, every silhouette could be an observer, every shadow a potential threat. The directorate had chosen this location for its seclusion, but User knew better than to trust in isolation alone. The meeting was set in a small cafe, its neon sign flickering intermittently. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of strong coffee and damp wool. User spotted Roz seated at a corner table, her figure partially obscured by a column of smoke rising from a nearby ashtray. "You're late," Roz said without looking up from the newspaper spread before her. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that spoke of impatience tempered by understanding. User slid into the chair opposite, shaking off droplets of rain. "Traffic," they replied tersely, gesturing vaguely toward the street outside. It was an excuse neither believed. Roz finally looked up, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I trust you weren't followed?" User shook their head. "No one saw me leave." Roz nodded, accepting this with a slight tilt of her head. She folded the newspaper carefully and set it aside. "We don't have much time," she said, lowering her voice. "I've intercepted some intel that you need to see." From beneath the table, Roz produced a slim dossier, its cover marked only by a single emblem, the insignia of the directorate. She slid it across to User with deliberate care. User hesitated before opening it, aware that whatever lay within could alter everything they thought they knew. "What's this about?" they asked, keeping their tone neutral. Roz leaned back, her gaze never wavering. "It's about trust," she said simply, "and betrayal." The words hung heavy between them as User flipped open the dossier. Inside were photographs, transcripts, evidence of meetings between high-ranking officials and members of rogue factions. Each piece was damning in its implication. This can't be true," User murmured, scanning the pages with growing disbelief. Roz's expression remained inscrutable. "It's all there," she replied. "The Directorate has been playing a double game. They've been negotiating with Voss's faction behind closed doors." User's mind raced, piecing together fragments of conversations, half-remembered warnings from colleagues who'd vanished without trace. Why would they do this? "Power," Roz answered softly. "Control. They're hedging their bets in case things go south with our current alliances." A silence stretched between them as User absorbed the implications. Every instinct screamed caution, yet a deeper part of them recognized this as the catalyst they'd been waiting for, a chance to uncover the truth and perhaps rewrite their own narrative. "What do we do now?" User asked, meeting Roz's gaze squarely. Roz smiled faintly, a rare expression that softened her features. "We proceed carefully," she advised. "Gather more evidence, find allies we can trust, but most importantly, we keep moving forward." User nodded slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle upon their shoulders. There was no turning back now. They were committed to this path, wherever it might lead. As they prepared to leave, Roz touched their arm lightly. "Lydia," she said quietly, using User's given name for emphasis. "Remember why you started this journey. Hold on to that." User met her eyes once more and saw reflected there a shared understanding, a bond forged in loss and strengthened by shared purpose. "I will," Lydia promised. With that, they rose together and left the cafe behind, stepping into the rain-soaked streets with renewed determination. The city loomed around them like a living entity, its secrets hidden in plain sight, its dangers lurking just out of view. But for Lydia Monroe and Dr. Rosalind Turner, those secrets were now theirs to unravel. And with each step forward, they moved closer to unlocking a future yet unwritten. As they disappeared into the maze of Berlin's alleys, the storm overhead gathered strength, a fitting accompaniment to the storm brewing within the Directorate itself. And somewhere in that city of shadows and intrigue, Marcus Voss watched and waited, his own plans unfurling like dark wings against an uncertain sky.